welcome our distinguished head table, including His Excellency Ambassador Masoud Khan. Please rise to honor them. As they are being seated, I just want to say welcome to everyone. This is really the first year that we've had a normalized event since COVID. So we are so excited to have so many people here. We've been blessed to have His Excellency Ambassador Khan chair us and lead us. So thank you so much for coming. And we appreciate your patience as everyone is seated. Thank you so much. I believe the head table is full. Please be seated. Good morning again. I am Pamela Freeman Fox, and I have the honor of serving again as the Mistress of Ceremonies for the 31st Annual International Salute to the Life and Legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King. We gather today to remember, reflect, and refocus with gratitude in our hearts for the man who spent and gave his life for the cause of freedom and for the promise of equality for all. We reflect on how Dr. King's action and advocacy inspires us all to follow his example by realizing the importance of an international pursuit of justice and peace for all. And we come together to refocus our purpose and advance his legacy in fighting injustice, bigotry, and oppression everywhere. Dr. King was distinguished for his ability to inspire people from all nations to work together to accomplish the goals of equality and opportunity. So today, we ask that you focus not only on his contributions, but also of those we are honoring, each of whom, in their own way, have been in service for a better quality life. So to begin our morning of reflections and to inspire us with song, I bring you mezzo-soprano Bonnie Burnett. Bonnie is an award-winning vocalist, and we're so proud that she's a member of our MLK International Salute family. Please listen as she honors us again today with one of Dr. King's favorite hymns, the Battle Hymn of the Republic. Bonnie.
The faithful lightning
me just take a personal moment and thank Bonnie. If I were not standing in front of all of you, I would be crying. In my personal life, I was a child in the segregated South. I did not sit in an integrated classroom until my senior year in high school. So thank you, Bonnie. At this time, we'd like to recognize our prestigious head table. Dr. King was a man who was loved by many nations, and we are gratified that some of them are represented here today. Many more send their regards for a successful remembrance. Also seated at the head table are today's award recipients, and we're delighted to honor their service in the spirit of Dr. King's legacy. I'll ask the head table to now briefly go around, share your name and who you are representing, beginning with His Excellency, Ambassador Khan.
Welcome everybody to this event, this magnificent event. My name is Masood Khan and I'm Pakistan's ambassador to the United States.
Good morning to everybody. I'm Zoda Masood Khan, ambassador from Pakistan. Nice meeting all of you. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Shaista Mahmood. I was born in Pakistan, but now I'm an American citizen.
Good morning, Ray Mahmood. I'm in the private sector.
Good morning, my name is Chanel McGoy, and I am a Senior Director at Gilead Sciences in Corporate Citizenship and Philanthropy.
Good morning, I'm Thelma Daly, National Council of Negro Women, and I presented the Dorothy I. Height Leadership Award.
Good morning, I'm Ronald Mason, President of the University of the District of Columbia, the public institution of higher learning in and for the nation's capital.
Good morning, I am the Reverend Dr. Michelle Higgins. I'm in the private sector, or the church.
Good morning, I'm Anthony Wuta, and I currently serve as the Provost at Howard University.
Good morning, my name is Renee McFadder. I'm the Assistant Vice President for the George Washington University.
Good morning, I'm Dennis Antoine. I have served as Grenada's ambassador to the United States, the United Nations, and the People's Republic of China, and a member of this committee.
Good morning, Excellencies. My name is Maud Lavinba. I am the ambassador of the Republic of the Gambia to the United States.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Elsie Kanza, and I'm the ambassador of the United Republic of Tanzania to the United States of America and Mexico.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Dumisa Musotu, ambassador of the Kingdom of Lesotho to the US. Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Oksana Markarova, ambassador of Ukraine, and I'm honored to be here with you.
Good morning, gentlemen. My name is Mohamed Hanash. I'm the ambassador of Algeria.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Felix Ngomot, consular at ambassade of Republic Congo Brazzaville, and I represent the Dean Momboli. Thank you.
Very good morning to everyone. I'm Yerzhan Ashikbayev, ambassador of the Republic of Kazakhstan to the United States.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Geraldine Byrne-Nace, and I'm the recently arrived ambassador from Ireland, and really thrilled to be with you all this morning.
Good morning. I'm Robert Stanton, former director of the National Park Service, U.S. Department of Interior.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Harry Johnson. I'm president of the Martin Luther King Memorial here in Washington, D.C., and a member of the committee.
Good
morning, everyone. I'm Jean Bailey, a professor at Howard University and chair of the Maryland-South Africa Sister State Committee for the Sister States of Maryland and a member of the committee. Thank you all for coming.
Good morning, all. I'm Judy Wogan Smith. I'm the wife of the Secretary of State of Maryland and also work for the General Assembly of Maryland.
And good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm John Wogan Smith. I'm the husband of the wife. Most important thing, and also the Secretary of State in Maryland. Thank you very much.
I'm Debbie Dreisman. I'm a private citizen.
So she's a private citizen. I am also a citizen. My name is Frank Islam. I'm chairman and CEO of FY Investment Group.
Good morning, I'm Pavel Shidlovsky. I'm a chargé d'affaires with the Embassy of Belarus to the United States. Thank you.
Good morning to everyone. My name is Javlon Bakhabov. I'm the ambassador of the country of Uzbekistan to the United States.
Good morning, I'm Khazar Ibrahim, ambassador of Azerbaijan.
Good morning, I'm Chris Van Hollen. I'm proud to represent the state of Maryland in the United States Senate. And for anybody not from Maryland, come on over.
Good morning, I'm Dr. Vivian Penn. I'm past recipient of the Dr. Dorothy Height Award, a member of the committee, founding director of the Office of Research on Women's Health at NIH, and currently Senior Scientist Emerita at NIH.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Rick Shadiak, and I'm the President and Chief Executive Officer of ALSAC, which is the fundraising and awareness organization for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital.
Thank you all. Let's give them a round of applause. We do have additional honored guests. Would you please introduce yourselves?
Good morning, I'm Council Pangdoi from the Chinese Embassy. Here we are representing our chargé d'affaires because our ambassador is now the Minister of Foreign Affairs. But congratulations on this great event and on our rewarded recipients. Thank you.
Good morning, my name is Musa Abad Saoud. I'm the Deputy Chief of Mission of Saudi Arabia. Pleasure to be here with you today.
Good morning, I'm Ishmael Issa, Deputy Head of Mission for the South African Embassy.
Good morning, I'm Chris Kamel from the Embassy of Portugal. Nice to meet you all.
Hi, good morning. This is Rizal Shano from the Turkish Embassy, First Consulate. It's a great honor to be with you today at the breakfast. Thank you.
Very good morning to all of you. My name is Tariq Ben Yusuf. I'm the Chargé d'Affaires of the African Union Mission to the US.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Diana Al-Hadid, Deputy Chief of Mission of the Embassy of Jordan here in Washington, D.C. Nice to meet you.
Good morning. I'm Günter Salzmann, DCM and Chargé d'Affaires of the Austrian Embassy. Thank you very much for the invitation. It's a pleasure and honor to be here.
Good morning, my name is Francesco Santillo. I'm the head of the political section at the Embassy of Italy. Thank you very much.
Good morning, my name is Mpo Olifan, First Secretary Political from the Embassy of South Africa.
Good morning, I'm Navy Captain Malik Jai, Defense Military Naval Attaché, Embassy of Senegal.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Hanan Tajouri Bessesi. I'm the Ambassador of Tunisia.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Samuel Hines, and I'm the Ambassador from Guyana in South America.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Amiel Iriafsou, the Acting Chargé d'Affaires at the Embassy of Madagascar.
mentioned, the honorary chair of this 31st Annual International Salute to Dr. King is His Excellency Masood Khan, Ambassador of Pakistan to the United States. At this time, I invite His Excellency to come forward to officially welcome us. As he does, let us show our appreciation and gratitude for the Ambassador's extraordinary leadership as honorary chair of the MLK Jr. International Salute, and we salute his commitment to represent the people of Pakistan on his mission here within the United States. I will again take a point of personal privilege and share with you that on our way from the airport, we had the pleasure of talking with our taxi driver who was from Pakistan, and he shared with us when we let him know we were coming to this event, and His Excellency was the chair. He exclaimed, I mean, he almost stopped the car and said, he was wonderful. He was our supporter. He was our advocate. We are so blessed to have him. So I want you to know, Ambassador, that your people loved you, and we do too. Please come forward.
I'm thankful to the cab driver. He's a real friend. Honorable Marilyn Lawson, distinguished award recipients, vice chairs and committee members, excellencies, diplomats, ambassadors, community leaders, ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome to this event. I congratulate the Institute for the Advancement of Multicultural and Minority Medicine for convening the 31st International Salute to the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King. I am grateful for being asked to serve as its honorary chair. I thank Ms. Lawson for her initiative to revive this great event after the pandemic to celebrate the life and work of Dr. King. You worked hard, Ms. Lawson, to bring us together for this magnificent event. By associating the diplomatic corps with the salute, you reach out to all nations and peoples of the world. I thank you all for being here today. My heartiest congratulations to the recipients of the coveted awards. Dr. Martin Luther King has profoundly influenced the lives of the people of the United States, its politics and society. He mobilized Americans for a just cause that was anchored in American values and Constitution and a higher calling for an egalitarian civilization. At the same time, the revolution he led has inspired leaders and citizens across the globe. He is a man for all nations. His campaign for racial equality and economic justice have been espoused as international norms. They are now part of our collective consciousness. In his lifetime, he fought against injustice, against codified and systemic racial discrimination and segregation, against evil ingrained in societies, against hubris, against a mindset that would not accept change. He also taught that change requires struggle because freedoms are not handed on a platter. Ladies and gentlemen, as Dr. King said at the Washington National Cathedral in 1968, darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. His message, love conquers all. Love is the ultimate deliverer of mankind. Dr. King's legacy lives on, a legacy of opposing discrimination, promoting social justice, and serving others. Let's keep his dream alive. His dream lives on, and the change he ushered in has brought about many radical changes in our lives. But some of the demons he fought still survive and thrive. It is therefore a constant vigil for all of us. It is our responsibility as an international community to be custodians and propagators of Dr. King's ideals, his message, which required constant nurturing. Dr. King speaks to us through his moving speeches. His words have inspired world leaders, lawmakers, and human rights activists and defenders. They have also influenced legislation at the United Nations, expanding the body of international law that promotes and protects universal rights for all. The drafting and adoption of the 1969 Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination were directly affected by Dr. King's strong advocacy for racial equality. His struggle spurred anti-apartheid movement in South Africa and helped hasten the demise of colonialism. His monument next to the National Mall elevates the stature of Washington and the United States in the Comity of Nations. Beyond ritualistic commemorations, Dr. King lives in the hearts and minds of the people of America and around the world. Dr. King's lasting legacy can be summed up in 3 words: freedom, equality, and justice for all. He was a courageous leader who fought repression and depravity to uphold respect for diversity and human dignity. Many impressive strides have been made at the national and global levels in this area, and yet protection of civil rights remains a continuous challenge. His legacy provides a template for combating anywhere in the world inequality and discrimination on the basis of race, color, creed, gender, ethnicity, and nationality. In a world buffeted by hatred and strife, Dr. King's thought is a beacon of light for amity and unity. Today, our goals include eradication of poverty and climate justice worldwide, so that no one is left behind, which is a clarion call of the United Nations Sustainable Development Agenda. On this day, let's not forget the poor populations that seek attention and help. Let's not forget the people being consumed by the fury of unjust wars and illegal occupation. There is no room for complacency. The flame of freedom and justice must keep burning now and for the future generations. Together, we have to go a long way. Like other nations, Pakistan has also been inspired by Dr. King. Personally, for me and other diplomats around the world, he has been a lodestar for fulfilling our shared obligations to promote civil liberties and fundamental freedoms. I conclude by the powerful call of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, made 1500 years ago. And he said, a white has no superiority over black, nor a black has any superiority over white, except by piety and good deeds. This is so compellingly echoed in Dr. King's declaration in 1963, that all people should be judged not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I thank you all.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for those very inspiring remarks. You have set the stage and reminded us of the significance of this day and why we come together each year. We appreciate your commitment and contributions to the cause that Dr. King heralded. Just before breakfast is served, I would like to, at this time, call forward Dr. Michelle Higgins, who will offer our prayer.
Let us pray. Almighty God, we gather to honor and to give thanks to you for the life, ministry, words of justice, and faith of Martin Luther King, whose witness pointed to the fear and ignorance underlying prejudice and bigotry that leave people at the door of society and church and deny God among us and in each of us. Martin reminded us that a society based on discrimination robs the oppressor of their humanity, and that society is impoverished by the denial of the gifts, talents, and vitality of those oppressed. Thank you for giving him a vision and a message of deliverance and equality as found in his words, "I have the audacity to believe that people everywhere can have 3 meals a day for their bodies, education, and culture for their minds, and dignity, equality, and freedom for their spirits. I believe that what self-centered men have torn down, other centered men can build up." On this day, we remember Martin, a minister of the gospel of Jesus, and your servant committed to peace and nonviolence, who was killed as he invited us to become a nation of greater justice, with equity and equality, and who was not an easy presence, just as Jesus was not an easy presence, seeking truth to power. On this day when there is too much hatred and greed, let us become, as Martin, instruments of peace and love. There is too much pride and arrogance that keep us at war. Let us become, as Martin, a people of humility and service. There is too much bullying and words of violence in our homes, in our schools, streets, political speeches, and in foreign lands. Let us become, as Martin, those who have no need to bully or seek violence, but be faithful to trust you and your reconciling love. Let us realize what Martin said, that as we struggle for justice and freedom, we have a cosmic companionship. The God that we worship is a loving God who forever works through the history for the establishment of his kingdom. Now, as we partake of this meal from the bounty of your creation, O God, give us a hunger for justice and a thirst for peace. Amen.
As the waiters quietly serve our food, we will be serenaded with a medley of songs from a young man you already heard from as you entered the ballroom this morning. Saxophonist Brian Lanier. Brian is a Washington, D.C. native. His love of music began at the age of 8 with his most profound influence, his dad, who also played the saxophone. Over the years, Brian has come to be known as Saxy B. Let's welcome back the very talented Brian Lanier. Thank you. Thank you. Please enjoy your breakfast. Psi Phi fraternity. However, we know that Dr. King was an Alpha Phi Alpha. So at this time, I have been urged by many, many men in the room to acknowledge Dr. Willis Lonser, who is the National President of Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity. And before we begin our award presentations, I just want to say that 2 of our award recipients had health issues and could not be with us this morning, Keith Ellison and Jillian Bartlett. I do hope that you enjoyed your breakfast during this concert, during Brian's concert, as we continue our program. I just want to mention that, Brian, you have been absolutely phenomenal, and all I can say is, Kenny G, watch out. As you all know, we are a nonprofit organization, and we deeply appreciate your donations to IAMMM for this event and for our continued events and activities. So thank you for your support, and we do appreciate your continued support. We're so pleased to see our local universities continue to support this international salute. I'd like to invite to the stage to bring special remarks at this time, all 3 please. Dr. Anthony Wutaw, the Provost and Chief Academic Officer at Howard University. He will be followed by Ms. Renee McFadder. Please, both of you come forward. Assistant Vice President at the George Washington University. And Dr. Ronald Mason, the President of the University of the District of Columbia. So we will have them make presentations in that order.
Good morning. Again, I'm Dr. Anthony Wutaw, and I currently serve as the Provost and Chief Academic Officer at Howard University, and it is certainly my high honor and my distinguished pleasure to bring greetings on behalf of the entire Howard University community, including our distinguished alum, Vice President Kamala Harris. Howard University has been the living embodiment of the dreams of Dr. King for the last 155 years, since we were chartered by Congress in 1867. And as we think about Dr. King's dream, his legacy, his vision, we also need to be reminded that he was not only an icon here in the United States, but he had a global presence. My family is originally from Ghana, and I was reminded that in 1957, Dr. King visited Ghana on the occasion of the independence celebration, and he was invited by Prime Minister Osagyefo Kwame Nkrumah. And while he was there, he had the opportunity to engage with then Vice President Richard Nixon. And he said to Vice President Nixon that he would love to invite him to Alabama to visit with the people of Alabama, where they would love to enjoy the same freedoms that he has witnessed with the people from Ghana. And so it reminds us that we are really one people, and that Dr. King's dream and his vision is one not only for the people of the United States, but really for the global community. So again, on behalf of Howard University and my good brother, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., I'm also an Alpha, I want to remind us to continue not only to dream his dream, but to make his legacy come live in the things that we do in the lives of the people, particularly the young people that we touch, and the commitments that we make to freedom and justice and liberty. God bless you and thank you.
Good morning. My name is Renee McFadder, and on behalf of Dr. Mark S. Wright, the 18th president of the George Washington University, I bring you greetings. One of the most important things that education can do is expand intelligence. And I was struck by a quote that Dr. King had about education. And this is what the quote says: "We must remember that intelligence is not enough. Intelligence plus character, that is the goal of true education. The complete education gives one not only the power of concentration, but the worthy objectives upon which to concentrate. The broad education will, therefore, transmit to one not only the accumulated knowledge of the race, but also the accumulated experience of social living." I think these words today are even more resonant. Greetings.
Good morning. I bring you greetings on behalf of the University of the District of Columbia, the public institution of higher learning in and for the nation's capital. Let me thank Madeline, and this is our table over here, where you I thank Madeline and the committee for giving me an opportunity to say a few words today. This will be my last time doing this as president of UDC, because I'll be retiring at the end of January. End of June, sorry. I tried to squeeze in an extra 6 months, but apparently, but the other thing is, today is actually my 70th birthday. And so if you give me just 3 or 4 minutes, I'd like to make a point about UDC and Martin Luther King and America. You know, there's always been two Americans. The one that we've lived for the last 200 years, which has really been about conquest and profit, and in some ways put profit over people. But there's also the other America that guarantees people's inalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And you can see this great debate about what America is, this experiment, this idea that we call America being played out today in the halls of Congress. But when the founding fathers founded America, George Washington, for example, I think they knew that this was a contradiction that would have to be resolved. And so George Washington, in his first address to Congress, said that there were two keys to the success of this new democracy they were starting in 1790. He said one was a military academy, and the other was a public university in the nation's capital. Now, the military academy ended up being West Point, and you can understand the role that West Point and the military-industrial complex has played in world affairs over the course of the last 200 years. But the other key to the future of the democracy that they started was founded on the 200th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. And that was the University of the District of Columbia. And I think George Washington knew that, on the one hand, the West Points of the world had their role, but that in order for the idea that we call America to be successful, there would have to be a voice that stood for community and the common good. And the fact that the University of the District of Columbia is a congressionally mandated, historically black university, the fact that it is the only exclusively urban land-grant university in America, and the fact that it is located in a city that cannot be ignored, the District of Columbia, to me means that its birth and its founding and its future are not a coincidence. And so UDC is really only 50 years old. We trace our roots back to 1851. It was founded in 1976. And it's really just getting started. And it has implications for everybody in this room, the future of this public institution of higher learning in and for the nation's capital. And I thought you should know that, because in 10 years, it will be the voice that I think helps define the future of not only America, but America's relationships with the rest of the world.
Thank you to each of our esteemed leaders from your educational institutions and partners in this salute for the most part of our 31 years. Now I'm excited to move into the presentation of awards. Our first award is the King Legacy Award for Leadership in Philanthropy and Global Health. We honor Richard Shadiak Jr. for this award. And we ask Dr. Vivian Penn to introduce our recipient. Then we will ask Dr. Shadiak to come up and say a few words. Ryan to a tribute to the award recipients as they come forward. Thank you, Ryan. presenters. But let me just backtrack, Ronnie. That song is a validation that God has brought us a mighty long way. And for those of you who are familiar with Donnie McClurkin's Total Praise, this was an instrumental version of Total Praise at its finest. Is Mr. Islam? Thank you. Okay, we will now proceed. No way should we have missed that musical tribute. So I'm going to call Dr. Vivian Penn forward to introduce our recipient. Dr. Penn.
I'm delighted on this morning to present the first award given in recognition of the attributes of Dr. King and recognizing those who carried forward those things we so admired in Dr. King. And this first award is to Richard Shadyac, Jr., who was named President and Chief Executive Officer of ALSAC, which is the fundraising and awareness organization for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. And he's been in that position since September 2009. He serves as ALSAC's 6th CEO since the organization's founding in 1957. As the top healthcare charity in the United States, ALSAC relies on generous supporters and volunteers who make donations and support tens of thousands of fundraising activities annually to support the mission of St. Jude, which is finding cures, saving children. He has led ALSAC to record-breaking achievements, guiding strategic efforts that have more than tripled fundraising revenue since the start of his tenure, and have elevated St. Jude as an iconic brand. ALSAC has earned the recognition of the #1 best workplaces for innovators from Fast Company magazine in 2020. It also has been named the #1 most trusted nonprofit of 2022, according to Morning Consult and the top health nonprofit brand of the year, for 9 years in a row. Think about that, the #1 most trusted nonprofit. That says a lot. And all of that has been under his leadership and vision. He was a natural for his current position because his father, Richard C. Shadyac Sr., was one of the first members of the board when St. Jude opened in the early 1960s and was a confidant to Danny Thomas, the founder of St. Jude. And actually, Mr. Shadyac told me that Danny Thomas would sometimes come and stay with the family when he was visiting Washington. That's how close they were. His father also served as ALSAC's CEO for 13 years before his retirement in 2005. Because of his father's early commitment to St. Jude, he grew up knowing about St. Jude's mission and started collecting coins to help children with cancer even as a young child. Mr. Shadyac was a practicing attorney for 27 years, including here in Washington, D.C., and earned a BA in political science from Marquette University and a law degree from Loyola University in Chicago. He's received several awards and recognitions, but became the only nonprofit executive to ever receive the Responsible CEO of the Year Award from Corporate Responsibility magazine in 2016. We are all aware of, and many of us are donors to St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. Recognizing the diversity of patients that it serves, saving lives based on innovative research and compassionate care, regardless of the child's cultural or socioeconomic background. St. Jude's represents a very special type of philanthropy in health. Knowing that Mr. Shadyac has led the efforts for many years to ensure the continuation of medical care and breakthrough cures for children of desperate families, it seems most appropriate that today he is being honored with the Martin Luther King Legacy Award for Leadership in Philanthropy and Global Health. Mr. Shadyac, please come forward.
Thank you, Dr. Penn, and thank all of you for this incredible award. I also want to congratulate all the award recipients. You know, my birthday is April 4th. In 1968, I had just turned 11 years old. I remember it like yesterday. I was living just outside of Washington, D.C., and on TV came the news of Dr. King's assassination. Women and men were weeping. Protests erupted all across the United States. National Guard trucks rolled through our city here in Washington, D.C. And as a young boy, I wondered, who was this man who could elicit such emotion and devotion from so many? Folks, I've spent my adult life since that day really trying to answer that question, trying to get to know Dr. King. I visited the Lorraine Motel in Memphis and the National Civil Rights Museum, which literally is within walking distance of where my wife and I live in Memphis. I've been to the Ebenezer Baptist Church, to Dexter Avenue Baptist Church, to Brown Chapel AME in Selma. I've walked across the Edmund Pettus Bridge, and of course I've visited the Martin Luther King Memorial here in DC. I've read his words over and over again, trying to grasp his compassion and his love, trying to live his life and his example of peace, harmony, and service as best I could. Dr. King's shadow is long, and it covers generations. For me, though, this journey has been a labor of love, and it's been about learning to really love, to truly embrace empathy and compassion, inclusivity, and justice for all. I will never know all there is to know, but that's okay. What I've learned since my 11th birthday, when I stood in front of my television, is that the journey to understanding, the journey to compassion, the journey to loving my neighbor in the broadest sense, that journey can be one of kindness and caring. And it ultimately can become a calling in its own right. Almost 14 years now, that journey took me to Memphis, Tennessee, the city where Dr. King was assassinated, to become the president and chief executive officer of ALSAC, which is American Lebanese Syrian Associated Charities, the fundraising and awareness organization for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. For almost 14 years, I've been blessed to serve this mission as its chief executive officer, which I'm proud to say was the first fully integrated children's hospital in the South. Diversity, equity, and inclusion are literally in the founding DNA of ALSAC and St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. And folks, a lot of people don't know this, but I'm blessed to go to work every day on hallowed ground. Hallowed for many reasons, one being that St. Jude shares a campus with what was then in 1968, St. Joseph's Hospital, where Dr. King was taken after he was tragically assassinated at the Lorraine Motel and ultimately pronounced dead. I work on that campus, and I'm literally moved daily by his memory and his spirit. And you know, at St. Jude, I'm reminded every day about that well-known quote from Dr. King. Of all the forms of inequality, injustice in health is the most shocking and inhuman. And this is still true today, and we're trying to change that at St. Jude. St. Jude was founded on the parable of the Good Samaritan, to love and care for our neighbor, regardless of color or creed. When St. Jude opened its doors in 1962, it was intentionally placed in Memphis, Tennessee, which then sadly was a segregated city. And from day one, we have welcomed children from all races, creeds, and religions. And from day one, we eliminated the financial barriers to quality specialty health care, because no family will ever receive a bill from St. Jude, not for treatment, travel, housing, or food, because all we want mom and dad to worry about is helping their child. St. Jude exists because a world seeking equity and compassion comes together to save kids regardless of what they look like and where they live and what they believe or what they could afford. And in the 1960s, it was the color of their skin, where literally black children were turned away simply because of the color of their skin. But not at St. Jude in 1962 in that segregated city. And today I'm proud to say that it's kids from Chile and Guatemala and the Philippines and Zimbabwe, refugees in the Middle East, and this year children from Ukraine, where we welcome 12 patients from Ukraine and 23 of their family members. These are children, folks, in many instances who don't have access to life-saving health care simply because of where they were born. And we at St. Jude are working to change that and now have partnerships in 68 countries across the globe, all because of supporters driven by kindness and compassion, just like the Good Samaritan, unified in purpose. I'm blessed to have spent much of my life serving this mission, working to save children everywhere and finding cures for some of the most difficult to cure diseases afflicting children. I want to thank this committee for this humbling honor. I want to thank my family, and I accept this award on behalf of all of my colleagues at American, Lebanese, Syrian Associated Charities, and St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. God bless you all.
Thank you so much. Our next presentation is for the Dr. Dorothy I. Height Leadership Award, named for our esteemed late president of the National Council of Negro Women and co-founder of the MLK Junior International Salute. This award will be presented to Dr. Chanel McCoy, and I welcome Dr. Thelma Daly to introduce our recipient. Dr. McCoy, please come forward.
You know, as the 8th National President and Chair of the National Council of Negro Women, I'm very honored to present this award named for the 4th National President and Chair of the Board of the National Council of Negro Women. And even though she said it, I just have to stress it, that Dr. Dorothy Irene Height was one of the founding members of this committee for this program. As some of you will remember, she knew Martin Luther King when he was just a little youth at Morehouse University. And she was one of the leading civil rights persons in this whole world, not just the United States, but the whole world. So I only give you that prelude as I present this award named for Dr. Dorothy Irene Height. And for the Deltas in this room, as you also know, she was also the 10th National President of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority, which celebrated this Founders Day on yesterday, as the AKA celebrate their Founders Day today. So, but I am honored to present an outstanding young professional for the Dorothy Irene Height Leadership Award. You know, Dr. Height, in her travels all across the country, would always go out and find young, talented people names we all didn't know. And she would bring those young, talented persons to the forefront and would always highlight them at the National Council of Negro Women conventions and conferences. And so maybe today, many of you may not in this room have met Dr. Chanel McCoy, but I bet you will never forget her after today. You know, imagine receiving 4 degrees. And I have to tell you, Dr. Height was one who was always for education because she was turned down from the school she wanted to go because of her color, but New York University accepted her without even going through her record. And so the young lady we present today has a Bachelor of Arts from Spelman University, a Master in Public Health from the University of Illinois School of Public Health, a PhD from Southern Illinois University in Carbondale, and a postdoctorate from the Satcher Health Leadership Institute at Morehouse. We salute you for all of your education. But Dr. McCoy has devoted her career to addressing HIV and related issues. Well, let me tell you this, Dr. McCoy, and even if you may not know it, you are closely related to Dr. Height. If she was living today, she possibly would have found you and brought you to one of the conferences. For Dr. Dorothy Height was one of the first persons in this country to convene a national convention on HIV/AIDS when everybody thought it was taboo and did not wish to test. And here you are, devoting your career to looking at working and informing people in terms of HIV/AIDS. I have to tell you, NCNW has a long history in working with HIV/AIDS and educating people and informing people and testing people and helping also to develop some policies. Dr. McCoy, you are to be commended for your philanthropic work, your 25 years of fighting for the marginalized and knocking down many, many barriers that stand in the road toward health equity, not only in the United States, but in Europe and Central Asia and Australia and Canada. And I would ask the audience, since I don't want to read her bio to you because it's already printed, but I would ask you to look at the little statement in the bio of her work in the state of Tennessee, in the Tennessee Health Department there, and look at what she did there as just a little bit of her life there. For she has concentrated on vulnerable communities, epidemiology, transformational community engagement, all on, and she epitomizes a very well-rounded life. In all of this, she's very easy to know. I met her last night. She's very personable. She finds time to be a quilter. She tells me she's a serious quilter. She's an art collector. She's a traveler, but she's also a strong advocate for Black colleges. We appreciate that so very, very much. I'm sure that Dr. Terry Powers and little Super and Magic, one 3 years old and one 1 year old, are very proud of wife and mom. And so Dr. Chanel McCoy, Senior Director of Public Affairs, Corporate Citizenship at Gilead Services, it is my honor to present to you the prestigious Dorothy I. Height Leadership Award.
I'm usually on the other side introducing people like Dr. Vivian Penn. So to have an introduction like that, thank you so much. It's very touching and emotional for me to take that all in when someone pours into you and to be able to receive that. So thank you. I really appreciate it. I want to thank you to the Mistress of Ceremonies and to Madam Lawson, to Ambassador Khan, Pakistan, for having us at dinner. It was a very special evening last night. To the honorary committee vice chairs, and to this morning honorees as well. I want to acknowledge all of the past award recipients, and especially the previous Dr. Dorothy I. Height Leadership Awardees. If you can just stand, I am just so honored to be following in the footsteps and standing on your shoulders. So thank you, if you can stand, those who have received the Dorothy I. Height Award. So many remarkable people. So again, thank you for this very special award. Both the lives of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Dr. Dorothy Irene Height have had a profound impact on who I have become as a person. I left my home in Peoria, Illinois, with barely enough money for the first year of college and to attend Spelman College, where I learned the true meaning of service. Embraced by a campus community of excellence, rich in legacy and tradition, with a campus community from Morehouse College like Martin Luther King Jr. and many of the women in his family who have graduated from Spelman. And a commitment to make the world a better place. It was at Spelman that I was awarded a scholarship focused on service. I never thought that would be possible. But the scholarship allowed me to pursue my studies and dedicate time to service during both the academic year as well as the summers. So one summer, an ambitious 20-year-old was fortunate to spend time right here in Washington, D.C., living in a hostel just 5 minutes from here at a Lutheran church with other college students who were immersed in summer service as well. I supported women experiencing homelessness, substance use disorders, and mental health challenges. It was one day that we decided, made arrangements for us to take a field trip. We visited the National Council of Negro Women building for a tour and to be inspired. Little did we know that Dr. Dorothy Irene Height was at work that day. How lucky we were to see her. We were greeted by her and spent time getting to know her. One of the women was a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated and shared a special moment with Dr. Height, a past president of the organization. I was struck by her kindness and her humility to take time with a college student and women who were experiencing many challenges in their life. I was inspired, the women were inspired, and it was a moment that I carry with me forever. So fast forward to today. So as you see me getting emotional, receiving this award in honor of Dr. Height's name is very special because I had the opportunity to meet her in the service that I was doing. It renews my commitment to the work of creating what Dr. King calls a beloved community, a multiracial, multicultural, and let me add, a global community where strategies to achieve health equity that are being developed in the U.S. South are being adapted in places across the globe. A community of love and peace where love is the convening effort, an inclusive vision of justice and reconciliation for all. May we continue this work of a beloved community as we continue to embrace our global community. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I now invite Mr. Frank Islam to present the King Legacy Award, Leadership in Government and Public Service to the Honorable Chris Van Hollen.
So my job is to introduce my dear friend, Chris Van Hollen. I don't think he needs any introduction. It is a truly privilege and honor for me to introduce United States Senator Chris Van Hollen from my home state of Maryland, and to receive the Martin Luther King Jr. Legacy Award for leadership in government and public service. I can tell you that Senator Van Hollen, who my wife Debbie and I know very, very well for many, many years, is unquestionably an outstanding choice to receive this award. The Senator has spent his career in service to the public and making government more effective and responsive to the needs of the citizens of Maryland and the United States. That philosophy and approach has enabled him to be a difference maker as a legislator and leader, both within the state of Maryland and at the national level. His record of public service speaks for itself. Most of you probably know Senator Van Hollen because of his work in the United States House of Representatives and now the United States Senate. Before coming to our nation's capital, he served in the Maryland General Assembly. The Time magazine wrote of his work there, such as preventing all drilling in Chesapeake Bay, mandating trigger locks for guns, and increased funding for education, that he was a hero of environmentalists, education groups, and gun control advocates. He has served now in Washington, D.C. for more than 2 decades. In his over a decade in the House, he was a leader and played a key role in the passage of the Affordable Care Act and the Wall Street Reform Law and the Economic Recovery Act, which helped put people back to work after the recession of 2008. Since becoming a senator, he's also played a leadership role in securing the passage of the Infrastructure and Build Back Better bill, which included initiatives he had championed, such as workforce training, providing access to more affordable child care and housing. Because of his accomplishment, the Washington Post has called him a gifted legislator and someone who has consistently earned a seat at the table where consensus might be forged. Those references by the Post attest to the fact that even though Chris Van Hollen is a tireless fighter, he knows that the important thing is not just to fight, but it is to get things done which benefit working class Americans. Today, though we have the good fortune to be here with Senator Chris Van Hollen as he receives the award, he has also followed the advice of Martin Luther King Jr., who said, and I quote, "Whatever your life's work is, do it well. A man should do his job so well that the living, the dead, and unborn could do it no better." We're here this morning to recognize and give Senator Chris Van Hollen the Martin Luther King Jr. Legacy Award for Government and Public Service because he has done his job so well. And as a result, this country and the world is a better and a fairer place to all. Senator Van Hollen, thank you for your service. The podium is yours.
Thank you, Frank, and I want to start by thanking you and Debbie for all your leadership and all that you've done in our area and around the country to live up to the ideals of Dr. King. So thank you, and Debbie, it's great to see so many dear friends here. I want to thank all the members of the organizing committee for the International MLK Salute, your CEO, Madeline Lawson, and to your honorary chair, Ambassador Khan. Many of you may not know this, but I grew up in a foreign service family. I was born in Karachi, Pakistan. I went to school in southern India. I lived in Sri Lanka and in Turkey. And I believe firmly that the message of Dr. King, of course, is a universal message. Having spent some time in India, we of course know the influence that Mahatma Gandhi had on the thinking of Dr. King. And here we are today to celebrate that legacy, but even more importantly, to make sure that each of us takes on the commitment to realize that dream, to make real the promise here in America of equal rights and equal justice and equal opportunity, and also to apply that universal idea around the world. And I want to thank the committee for thinking of me with connection with this award, but I also want to congratulate the other award nominees. But most of all, I really want to thank all of you, those who are gathered here to make sure that we keep the spirit of Dr. King alive and make sure we put that spirit and that faith into action every day through our individual acts of kindness. Because the idea, of course, is to build a more perfect world, and of course here at home, a more perfect union. And the vision is universal. When Dr. King says that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere, he's not just talking about the United States, he's talking about the world. And we all have a responsibility in a very messy world to do our very best to stand up for human rights and justice. Not only when it's politically convenient, but across the globe. Applying those standards not just to our friends, but also not just to our foes, but to our friends. And I think it's important that all of us gather to make sure that we keep our eye on that important light. Now, of course, injustice takes many forms. We see it here at home in terms of issues of environmental justice, and we see the issue of environmental justice playing out around the globe through the impact of climate change and the climate crisis. And of course, those around the world who are most vulnerable are those who are most harmed by climate change. And I think of the floods in Pakistan that we witnessed. And it is really important that whether it's in Pakistan or other places around the world, the United States and other countries that have been primarily responsible for the release of carbon emissions and climate change do our very best to address the inequities and harm imposed on countries around the world who contributed very little to climate emissions. I do want to focus for a moment on the issue of healthcare. And I think of Madeline Lawson and the Institute for the Advancement of Multicultural and Minority Medicine. And Richard reminded us of the quote that I'm often reminded of as well from Dr. King, which was, of all the forms of inequality, injustice in healthcare is the most shocking and inhumane. We've seen those disparities here at home, and we see them around the world. Speaking globally for a moment, I have the honor of chairing the Subcommittee on Africa and Global Health on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. And one of our absolute priorities has been working to try to make sure that the United States and partners are leaders when it comes to health issues in Africa and other parts of the world, helping through AID and other instruments of the U.S. government to support health infrastructure. And of course, the COVID-19 pandemic has laid bare healthcare disparities around the world, including here in the United States of America. Here in the United States, one of the actions we took early on after President Obama was sworn in was passing the American Rescue Plan. And one of the goals of that was to make sure that we provided vaccines more quickly and more equitably around the country so that they were distributed through community health centers and places of worship, as well as through other places that provided, like pharmacies. And that was very successful at working to overcome the inequities in the implementation and provision of the vaccine. And of course, we are working to do that around the world, and not just when it comes to COVID-19, but diseases like malaria, diseases like tuberculosis, and so many other diseases that impact and harm people around the world and impose the greatest hardship and burden on the most vulnerable. Here at home, and Frank mentioned this, we've had a long road toward trying to make sure we have a more equitable health care system. The Affordable Care Act was an important part of that. So are other measures that we have taken, including recently, as part of the Inflation Reduction Act, expanding access to the Affordable Care Act and working to reduce the costs of prescription drugs. We also, in this last piece of legislation, provided substantial additional funds to NIH for the John Lewis Research Endowment Program to address issues of minority health and health disparities. That was an important measure, including, of course, disparities in maternal health and Black mothers. One of the great opportunities I had a number of years ago was to work with Elijah Cummings, who was a great American and a great Marylander, to pass legislation that I authored in the Senate, he authored it in the House, called the Henrietta Lacks Enhancing Cancer Research Act. To make sure that when we do clinical trials in cancer or other diseases, we have a diverse group to make sure that we're getting drugs that are efficient and effective for all of our populations. And more recently, I've been working very closely with colleagues and pushing forward to address sickle cell disease, which is a disease which, as everyone here knows, disproportionately impacts the African American community. So we have a lot of work to do in addressing health disparities here at home and around the world, and addressing injustices here at home and around the world. Thinking very locally, one of the things that we can do is to make sure that the District of Columbia has statehood and the people of the District of Columbia have full voting rights. As I listen to our great leaders of a number of universities here in Washington, D.C., I thought, my goodness, we need to start here at home, and that is going to be an ongoing effort for many of us. So we act locally. We also want to act globally. I want to thank all the members of the Diplomatic Corps who are here. The ambassadors and the other consular officers. As I said, having grown up in a foreign service family, I appreciate what you do on behalf of your countries and building stronger relationships here with the United States. I know a good ambassador when I see one, Ambassador Khan, and you are one, and the other ambassadors here, I really, and members of the Diplomatic Corps, thank you. Because at the end of the day, and I close with this, Dr. King's message was that universal message. It was a universal message of love. It has been enshrined in United Nations resolutions, and we need to work harder every day to make sure that we achieve those goals. Dr. King said that the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. And each of us, regardless of what country we're from, what our background is, each of us has an obligation to help bend that arc faster and further with the urgency of now. Thank you all very much for being part of that.
And now, on to our King Legacy Award for Leadership in Subnational Diplomacy, which goes to the Honorable John Wobensmith. I invite Dr. Jean Bailey to come forward to present this award to him. Dr. Bailey.
Thank you. Honorable Ambassadors, Madam Chair, honorees, I'm very proud to have the opportunity to present the first Leadership in Subnational Diplomacy Award to my good friend, John Wobensmith. As we have all heard today, and we all know, we're here today because of the power of one person. That person decided that his one voice in a sea of millions was going to be heard over the roar of racism and injustice. That person made up his mind that to truly have a society to live up to its potential, it needed to consider its fellow man beyond its borders, as I think Vice President Bouta mentioned about his experience in Ghana. We have heard, and I was born in the rural South and heard his resonant voice loud and clear and have continued to celebrate it. It is always the right time to do the right thing. It is as if Dr. King's voice in his years, as he successfully assumed his duties as the Secretary of State of Maryland, where he transformed our Sister States program during his 8-year tenure. During that 8 years, John has been the embodiment of subnational diplomacy. Before, I guess, Congress and the State Department became aware of its significance. He promoted Maryland's interest and relationships in more than 19 countries, many of these countries represented here today, on the continent of Africa, Asia, Europe, and the Americas. Through the programs that we have implemented in the state of Maryland, through the various departments, and through the Sister States of Maryland in very many innovative ways. From bilateral agreements in science and technology cooperation, to higher and basic education, to agriculture, and promoting the Maryland equine industry, the horse industry, to sharing best practices for public health and safety. John has demonstrated success in engaging with our foreign counterparts, that I know many of the ambassadors here know him because he made it his mandate that he would go to every embassy, take advantage of the close proximity to the embassies here in Washington, D.C., to his office in Maryland. So he, on behalf of all of us, he has been in the forefront of leading the effort to have more emphasis on subnational diplomacy, which many of you may not have actually heard of, but has been recently passed in September of 2022. It was an office was established in the State Department, Senator Van Hollen, and this office will coordinate overall U.S. policy and programs in support of city and state engagement with foreign governments and officials. So We don't have to wait now for the U.S. national government to engage with the various countries. We will be working and continue to work, as we have done with our Sister States Committee, with the local communities to reach out to the various government officials in those countries, and also citizens. It is called citizen diplomacy. Yes, it is intelligence, it's intuition, it's also a strong work ethic that has set John apart in the area of diplomacy. But having worked with him, and I can think of one really significant special occasion where he exhibited strong empathy with me when I experienced a very delicate situation with one of my colleagues and from South Africa, and he just has a natural affinity for appreciation and affection for the individual and the worth and importance of all men. You're going to hear from John very shortly, but I wanted to give you an idea of the individual who is walking the path of service to others, nationally, locally, and internationally, that Dr. King wants us all to do in our lives. And John is doing this by making these lifelong connections that enhance our global footprint, share our cultures, and create opportunities for everyone to answer, and I quote, life's most persistent and urgent question, what are you doing for others? So it is my pleasure, my distinct honor, to introduce to you and to present to Secretary Wogan-Smith this Leadership in Subnational Diplomacy Award on behalf of the IM Board. Secretary Wogan-Smith.
Well, good morning. And thank you so much, Jean, for that very warm introduction. I also want to thank Ambassador and Mrs. Khan for dinner last night. That was a very special dinner, and we appreciate it very much. Jean's role as the chair of the Maryland South Africa Sister States Committee, as well as all the board members of the Sister States of Maryland, and my good friend and colleague, Deputy Secretary Luis Barunda, who's over here taking a picture. You guys all made my job as the Secretary of State over the last 8 years a little bit easier. And also, it would make Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. immensely proud, I know. As a point of personal privilege, I'd like to have the Sister State board members and Deputy Secretary Luis Barunda please stand, if you would, at your tables. There's 2 sets of tables back here, I think. Thank you. And of course, my wife Judy, who has been my advisor, my protocol officer, and wife for now 56 years next month. What a blessing. Couldn't have done it without her. To start, I accept the award for Leadership in Subnational Diplomacy, not for myself, but for the people of Maryland, who have allowed me to be a public servant for them and to continue to build on the foundational work of many who had come before me and that labor alongside me every day. Quoting Dr. King, whatever your life's work is, do it well. And what I do as Maryland Secretary of State has sometimes brought me restless nights as I reflected on the difficult issues facing communities around the world. And of course, we see that right today with Ukraine. But those nights are forgotten in the midst of laughter with community members as we converse about culture, and most of all, the joy I feel as I reflect on my life's work and what we have been able to accomplish for the people of Maryland and for our global partners. Dr. King achieved in his short 39 years on this earth what so many people dream of in twice that span. A fearless civil rights leader, an effective labor organizer, a Nobel Peace Prize recipient, and an overall force to be reckoned with, and always with his eyes on the prize, which was to have America, the United States, live up to its potential and its promise. In 1957, 1 year after the end of the Montgomery bus boycott, Dr. King took his first international trip, soaking in the richness of Ghana and Liberia and Senegal. That trip broadened his mind as he connected the civil rights struggle in the United States to similar conditions abroad as countries in Africa were gaining their independence. My career in the Navy allowed me to make those mental connections at an early stage in my adult life. I could better link my experiences of what was happening in the 60s domestically. So March on Washington of 1963, Freedom Rides of 1961, Poor People's Campaign of 1968, to what was occurring abroad and bridge those two somehow in my professional life. As a person who likes to solve puzzles, you know, my profession, I had to learn to break and decipher codes. I also applied some of those skills. I learned to my roles as Secretary of State, stateside, to advance our country's national interests by facilitating win-win situations. A couple of those were, of course, chairing the work group on safe harbor for youth victims of human trafficking. Particularly important one also, chairing the task force to study child custody court proceedings involving child abuse or domestic violence, something that we were able to get passed through our legislature and signed by the governor, Senate Bill 17, which required judges to be trained for child custody issues. It's a very difficult situation. It's the first legislation in the country to mandate judges doing that. We did a task force that I chaired to study recording deeds for victims of domestic violence, thus taking them, making them safe because their names were not available on the internet or in general. Earlier, I served on the Maryland Governor's Advisory Board for Justice Assistance under Governor William Donald Schaefer in the late 80s and early 90s, and most importantly, pursuing economic justice and open markets through our Maryland Sister States program. That program started in 1980, which I oversee, and we have government-to-government relationships, as Jean mentioned, with 19 countries across Africa, Asia, Europe, and the Americas. The steps we've taken to strengthen our collaboration with South Africa, for example, includes cultural exchanges, key tourism promotion, housing, social development, early childhood education, substance abuse prevention, as well as port collaboration and investment and trade opportunities. So it covers many, many different areas. We're very pleased with the timely recent collaboration with the U.S. Embassy in Pretoria and Durban to tell the story of Maryland's role in the struggle against apartheid. As Maryland was the first southern state to divest from the government in 1984. Another example of what started out as a cultural exchange with a small town in northern France blossomed into a sister states agreement with the Hauts-de-France region and was recognized not too long ago in 2021 in a report produced by the Brookings Institute. A visit by a Maryland delegation last June by our Agriculture Department and others to promote Maryland's renowned equine industry, Justice Month, produced sister states commitments with not one but 4 counties in the Republic of Ireland. And so pleased that the ambassador is here today, and I know that's going to blossom into a wonderful relationship. So this is Maryland figuring out ways to connect our local and state interests in order to increase cultural exchanges and expose people to a wider world, and purposefully applying those learning experiences to better understand foreign policy within a domestic framework. I've been privileged and honored to work on so many important issues, but what I'm most proud of is to have helped in some small way to bring us closer together as brothers and sisters. Dr. King knew what he was doing by exploring the world. He said, and I quote, "We must learn to live together as brothers or perish as fools." By accepting this award, I have vowed to keep learning to live together, since that drives my engagement in an international context to make home the place that it is and continue to grow to be. Once again, thanks to you all for this gift of leadership in Subnational Diplomacy Award. Dr. King is no longer with us physically, but clearly his spirit will always surround and encourage all of us. Thank you so much.
This time, I would like to offer congratulations again to all of our distinguished individuals for their hard work to further the vision of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and to help improve the quality of life for all of us. So thank you to our distinguished presenters also, and let us give them another round of applause. We could not complete this annual award program without a few words from the woman who has volunteered her time and her talent for the last 31 years to make this program happen. She worked with Dr. Dorothy I. Height and Ms. Coretta Scott King. She headed the Martin Luther King Jr. Federal Holiday Commission that was headquartered in Washington, D.C. For the past 18 years, she has served as the Chief Executive Officer for IAM, the International Association of Multicultural and Minority Medicine. IAM is an organization focused on reducing and eliminating health disparities in the minority community globally. She is also the former Executive Director of the Links Incorporated and the Links Foundation Incorporated. Please welcome to the podium for a special presentation and closing remarks, Ms. Madeline Lawson.
Thank you, Pam, and good morning. Just a little housekeeping. I know that we're probably imposing on church service for some of you. And we're losing a few people. So we want to keep this moving. And so I would like to ask the ambassador if he would come forward. Ambassador Khan, would you please come to the podium? And I should have the former ambassador of Pakistan should be here with us. And Mrs. Martin.
Good morning. Thank you, Madeline, for including us. This is a great honor for us to recognize the ambassador from Pakistan. Ambassador Masood Khan is currently serving as Pakistani ambassador to the United States. Prior to his appointment in 2022, he was the president of Azad Jammu and Kashmir. Before becoming the president, Ambassador Khan was the Director General of the Institute of Strategic Studies Islamabad, one of the top think tanks in Pakistan. Ambassador Khan has also a distinguished diplomatic career. Most notably, he served as spokesperson of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Pakistan ambassador and permanent representative to the United Nations and other international organizations in Geneva, Switzerland, Pakistan ambassador to China, Pakistan ambassador and permanent representative to the United Nations headquarters, New York. Ambassador Masood Khan also remained Pakistani chief negotiator for the US-led Nuclear Security Summit. His areas of specializations include nuclear diplomacy, South Asia, Pak-China relations, Pak-US relations, diplomacy and international humanitarian law, among others. So it's our great honor to recognize Ambassador Khan for the award. It's King Legacy Award for International Service and Diplomacy. So before giving the award to him, I will request Zora Khan to join him, because I always believe there's always a woman beside the men, not behind the men.
I have to say thank yous. First and foremost to Ms. Shaista Mahmood for introducing me to all of you and for her generous account of my resume. I'm also grateful to Ms. Marilyn Lawson and the organizations that he represents for conferring this award on me. I'm also pleased that all of you are here. Some of you we received at the Pakistan Embassy yesterday. Now, I also want to thank Ambassador Ray Mahmood. They're the ones who have introduced us to this wonderful, wonderful group. And thank you so much, Ms. Pamela Freeman Forbes, for conducting this ceremony so elegantly. So thank you so much. Very brief remarks, because I've already spoken to you, and I don't want to misuse this opportunity, but it's a pleasant surprise for me. And when you honor me, in fact, you're honoring Pakistan and all the people of Pakistan, so I thank you. Second, I would say that it is an honor to be associated with the iconic figure of Dr. Martin Luther King and his mission. And I'd say that while it's an occasion to celebrate, it is also a moment for reflection, because by being associated with Dr. King, you not only imbibe his spirit, you also take that responsibility on your shoulders to carry his mission forward. I think that it is our collective responsibility, as it was reiterated today by speaker after speaker, that we have to strive for a better world. And that is our collective mission as individuals, as communities, as nations, and as the international community. Now, we can never be complacent. We can never sit on our laurels. We will have to continue the struggle, I think, till eternity. There's no doubt about it, because we can never, ever lower our guard. While there are people who continue to promote and protect rights of people all over the world, there are those who would oppose them and undermine the system of universal respect for human rights. I think that Senator Chris Van Hollen, who was born in Pakistan and is revered and respected by the Pakistani American, but by all the people here in the United States as well, he mentioned climate, and I'd say that since Pakistan has been affected by epic floods this past year, we are striving to get recognition for climate justice, not just for Pakistan, but for all vulnerable countries. And finally, as I said earlier, that let's pray for the emancipation of the people, and in fact, of the people who are victims of unjust wars and occupation. This is also our obligation, and this would also, if we do this diligence, this would be in the spirit of Dr. King's legacy. Finally, I'd say that the ones who are present here today and the ones to whom we will communicate, it is our responsibility, individual responsibility and collective responsibility, to devalue the currency of hatred and promote love and affection and amity for all. Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in thanking the Ambassador Khan and Mrs. Khan. I can say to you that this Ambassador Khan has not just been an honorary chair, he's been a working chair. And we can see that today because we started this breakfast 31 years ago. And the first breakfast, we had 2 ambassadors present at that breakfast. It was international, but we were just starting out. We had 2 ambassadors. One was the ambassador of Nigeria and ambassador of Liberia. Today, we have a total of over 60 ambassadors and embassy representatives here today. You know, this is always an emotional moment for me because I began this 31 years ago, but I had a different team at the time. Dr. Hyde was my leader. She was my mentor. I worked with her for many years and I loved her dearly. And I had Henry Brown, who was the sole sponsor from Anheuser-Busch. And those 2 were my God and light. And they kept me straight. And so I missed them dearly. Dr. Hyde passed away some years ago. Henry is not traveling at this time, and so he hasn't been with us in a few years. But I think of them because they were the 2 that gave me the guidance and direction to push this breakfast forward. And in my conversation a week ago with Henry, he assured me that he knew the breakfast was in good hands because he had taught me well. And so I say to you, I'm really thankful for all of you for coming out and making this breakfast a success each year. We started this 31 years ago, and the first holiday was celebrated 37 years ago. And today, if Dr. King were alive, he would be 94 years old. And so I say happy birthday, Dr. King. And also to my dear supporter and friend, attorney and president Ron Mason, happy birthday to you. We certainly really appreciate the support we've had from the 3 universities, Howard University, University of the District of Columbia, and George Washington University. And of course, we're going to miss having, we'll have him come to the breakfast, not as president of UDC, but we certainly appreciate your support, President Mason. I also wanted to say to the honorary award recipients, I do feel a sense of connection to the four of you who are here today. Chanel Boyd is the youngest award recipient we've had to date. She represents the 40 under 40. And so I know that Dr. Hyde would be so proud that we have done that. Also, Secretary Woolsey represents the state of Maryland. I still claim it as my home even though I transitioned. So we appreciate all the great work you're doing. A few years ago, I worked at Links Incorporated as executive director, and during that time, we awarded Links $1 million to St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital. It was part of my task and responsibility to visit the hospital in preparation for that award. But it was my first connection to the hospital. And once I toured that hospital, I knew that I wanted to always do something to give back. And I encourage everyone in this room, if you've not been to Memphis, you should go and make your first stop at St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital, because the work that's done there to support the children is just amazing. And you don't know it until you visit and really talk to the team there at St. Jude. So I was fortunate to have that opportunity, and it really also began to enhance my life's work. I worked there for a short while to help out, but I still want to support them any way I can. And so I will say to you, even though I was told I should be plugging IAM's contributions, I want to say to you, I encourage you to support St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. And with Senator Van Hollen, a few years ago, I was invited to come to London for a program, a special event. It was a person who had offered to chair our breakfast here. And he wanted me to come to a dinner there in London. But they gave me 2 days' notice. And of course, I hadn't traveled out of the country in a while, and just assumed that my passport was okay. And so I traveled from Virginia to Maryland to get ready for my flight, only to discover that my passport had expired. And so I called the passport office, and they said to me, 10 days, so I could get a passport. Well, I needed it in a day. So I called Senator Van Hollen's office. And they told me, you know, to go downtown. They told me where to go, and we'll see what we could do. So I went down to the passport office, and I want you to know, within 45 minutes, I had my passport. I just want you to know, Senator Van Hollen, you've always had a special place in my heart. So I want to thank you all for coming out. I have to acknowledge, I think Robert Stanton, who has been with us from the very beginning, would you please stand up? Frank Islam and Debbie Dreisman, who are major supporters of the event, with Shayester and Ray, Mahmoud are major supporters, Harry Johnson, Dr. Vivian Penn, Dr. Thelma Daly. I hope I haven't overlooked anyone, but these are the people who really give me strength, give me support. I love volunteering. That's been a part of my life, that I do this. I don't know what else to do. And so we will continue for as long as we can. And we encourage you to be a part of it. And we encourage you to tell us how we can do it better. We have to keep the work that Dr. King has done. We have to keep alive, and the young people who are coming after us. Because if we don't, we'll stray another path. And so we need this. We need to come together. I feel so good today because even in spite of the pandemic, which put us on pause for 19 months, we're back. And we're not back 100%. But we're close to it. And so with your support, we'll continue. Thank you all so much. I hope you'll have a great weekend. I do want us to sing We Shall Overcome at the end. And I ask the award recipients and the presenters to please come to the stage immediately at the end so we can get this one photograph. Thank you so much.
Tremendous morning, the 31st anniversary of the Martin Luther King International Salute, and I am really pleased at the attendance, the participation, the honorees, presented awards to, and I want to thank everyone for being a part of this celebration today. It's been a great day.